So again, today we're going to be talking about supported decision making, especially supported decision making in practice. And again, this is our second session for our parents supported decision making train the trainers. So again, I'll share more at the end, I guess, as well. But this is for you to be trained on supported decision making so you can help not just advocate for your child, but to also share information and resources to other parents and to other individuals and to help us share the message of supported decision making as well. All right. And so, like our other session, I'm just going to begin with this quote. You have the ability to protect your child even more with support and without the court. And it's called supported decision making. And I really just want to frame us with this because, as parents, as family members, one of the key motivating factors that parents are even looking at to conservatorship is for the protection of their child. It's not to force them to lose their rights. It's because you want to protect them. And so we just want to share more about why supported decision making will effectively protect them more. And so, what we'll cover today is more on why supported decision making. Our training last time focused just kind of an introduction to supported decision making, talking about when and where it can be used. And now we want to talk about why supported decision making, talking about when and where and how you can advocate for your child and to center your child in decisions. Talking about building support networks, that's a big question parents often ask, as well as talking about challenges, disagreements, and then again, finally talking about your role as a parent trainer with us. So again, why supported decision making? And so this slide kind of echoes what we talked about last week. I want to start off with talking about an expanded circle of support. In conservatorship, one or if there's a co-conservator, two people are in charge of all decisions for this individual, which makes life very limited. It makes who you interact with possibly very limiting. And with an expanded circle of support, you have a larger group of trusted individuals to help facilitate decision making and facilitate conversations. And they'll have more people that they can trust than under a conservatorship, where all the power lies to one person. Another important thing is support without the court and flexibility to change your mind. Unlike conservatorship, you don't need to go to the court in order to practice supported decision making. It can be practiced very informally. And if you do choose to create a supported decision making agreement, it can be notarized or it can just be signed off by other witnesses as well. And there's no need to involve the court at any time when you are trying to make any type of decisions or if there's a change in who the supporter may be. Um, Whereas in conservatorship, you would have to involve the courts, whether it's you want to move, whether it's you want to change who the conservator is, or let's say someone passes away and now we need to change who the conservatorship is. It's all a long court process. Unlike supported decision making, where we can build in that network of support early on and talk about a plan of succession that will be followed. And finally, you can attach it to legally binding documents. You can attach it to other documents such as powers of attorneys, HIPAA authorizations. Oftentimes, when we talk about supported decision making, um, parents go to this automatically to the sphere of, well, my child can't make all the decisions by themselves, and that's why we call it supported decision making. We have people there to support them however they need. And under supported decision making, maybe there are some types of decisions that they feel comfortable making all on their own. Maybe there's some decisions that they feel like they need a little help with. And finally, there might be some decisions that they ultimately choose that they need someone to decide for them, whether that be healthcare, finances, and that's when you can involve other forms such as a power of attorney over finances or a power of attorney over healthcare. So next, as we talk about why supported decision making, we're going to talk about learning from mistakes. Oftentimes, a lot of times when we talk to parents and talk to self advocates about what they're taught in education is this idea of compliance, this idea of needing to follow these rules, needing to address these behaviors, not being able to say no, and not being able to say, I don't know. It's more of, if you don't know, well, try again. And so rather than that, we want to encourage talking to them about what their options are. And if they don't know, encouraging curiosity, encouraging them to ask questions and to have dignity of risk and to be able to learn from their mistakes. So, what is dignity of risk? Dignity of risk is just the ability for people to have the right to make their choices, and that includes having a reasonable amount of risk. A lot of times, we want to be able to protect our child, but if we don't allow our children to take these risks and make some of these mistakes, they can't learn from them. And the best way for them to exercise and learn about decision making is to be able to practice it. And if they make a mistake, to learn about it, to learn about what the consequences are and how you can do better. And so, one of the examples maybe um, I worked with someone with autism once, and she was super excited about the food that she had planned, right? And this is a very simple scenario. She was really excited about all the food that was at a party. And so she filled up her plate. She kept eating. And, the suggestion was made to her that, hey, like, this seems like more than the amount you usually eat. Are you full yet? We don't want to get sick afterwards, right? And she shared that no, like, she was okay. And she still wanted to keep eating because she wanted to try all the good food. Eventually afterwards, she did get sick, but we were able to let her have that dignity of risk and to learn to make that mistake and to learn from it. If we prevent our children from making any mistakes, they won't know what's a good decision from what's a bad decision. They won't understand that. And so it's really important as parents and as family members and supporters of children and adults with disabilities is for them to understand what the risks are and for them themselves to decide upon that. Also, why supported decision making is protecting against abuse. So, oftentimes parents think that a conservatorship will protect them against abuse, whether it's financial scams, sexual abuse, or even interacting with law enforcement. But that's actually not the case. Conservatorships will provide no extra protection against abuse. But with supported decision making, when you surround them with a group of trusted individuals, rather than limiting that to just one person, it'll ultimately protect them against abuse. It also protects them against abuse when you consider you're educating them on how to make decisions and how to make safe and good decisions. We also want to talk about how it's all about empowering autonomy, encouraging their independence. Oftentimes, when we we have this we want to protect our child and sometimes it can lead to this area of overprotecting your child, and that can lead to over dependency, and that limits what their autonomy can be, and it limits how much they can grow and they can learn from their decisions. Their capacity and their decision making abilities are growing every single day. Other things we want to talk about is pride and excitement about life choices. When someone has a say and gets to make decisions about their life ultimately becomes more exciting for them. They have goals that they want to reach. They're able to follow their passions, right? If we were to live a life and someone made all the decisions for you, it limits what you can do to achieve the goals you want. And so this really goes into, again, wanting to center the individual with disability, wanting to center what they want to accomplish in their lives. And we want to share again with for supported decision making. It went into law into the Welfare and Institutions Code here, and ways that you can have people present is they just need to indicate that they want to have a supporter present with them in meetings or in written communication. And third parties are legally not allowed to refuse the presence of these supporters. So if your child is at a doctor's office, maybe they're at their IPP meeting, they're at an IEP meeting or any other visit with lawyers or anything like that, they're legally allowed to indicate or say that maybe they want mom present, maybe they want dad, maybe they want aunt, uncle, or friend. They're allowed to indicate who they want present there. And this also includes written communication, though I just want to say that for healthcare communication, you do have to fill out HIPAA authorization to be more privy to that as well. But as long as they're there, they can indicate having someone there and they legally cannot prevent you from going. And I just wanted to share this because, again, like we were saying earlier, a lot of times, especially in the education and healthcare systems, when a child is about to turn 18, these professionals will say, if you don't conserve your child, you'll no longer be able to be in their doctor's visit. You'll no longer be able to be a part of their IEP, which is simply not true with the law that was passed. Next, I want to share about advocating for your child. So, when using supported decision making, there are so many areas of where and when you can advocate for your child. And this includes education, healthcare, and the regional center. And it all begins with making your child the center of these decisions. And in these meetings, it's about encouraging these professionals to address your child rather than to address you as their supporter. Um, Oftentimes when we talk to self-advocates, they feel very left out of the decision-making process when they aren't addressed in these meetings. Everyone is talking about them without including them in the conversation and talking to them in a way that they understand. And so for education, you can advocate for them for talking about whether um, they need different accommodations in school. Maybe it's sharing that school is difficult and they are having to act out because they're having trouble concentrating and it's a very frustrating environment. And talking about how they can help is maybe they need accommodation of having noise canceling headphones in school. And as a parent, that's when you can step in and help with their and advocate for them. In healthcare, it's encouraging the healthcare professional to address your child rather than to address you so that they can really understand that. It's educating them early to prepare for healthcare decisions, making them aware about what their healthcare needs are. No one turns 18 and is automatically able to make healthcare decisions, right? Not you, not me, not our child with a disability. And so they need to learn these skills, and how you learn it and how you can make good healthcare decisions with support is to really understand what your healthcare needs are. That includes maybe sharing with them what maybe they have diabetes and sharing with them that diagnosis and what that means for their health, right? And that begins with including them in the conversation as early as possible. And in the regional center, you can advocate that for them in the different resources they may need. And this really segues into the self-determination program as well, which we have a lot of meetings on. And this whole idea of living a self-determined life and letting them be able to be in the driver's seat for their decisions, for their resources, for who their staff may be. And as a parent, you can help advocate for them before they turn 18 and continue to be a supporter for them in their regional center services as they become an adult as well. This is a phrase that I've been saying a lot tonight, but again, it's all about centering your child and it's about understanding what their motivations are and framing decisions and their options in a way that supports what their motivations are and supports what their communication preferences are. An example that I've used in the past is when I was working as a caregiver for someone with autism and other disabilities. They got into an intern program to work with different animals and different pets. But in order to be actively caring for the animals and touching the animals, they needed to get their flu shot, they needed to get a TB test. And so, in that process, and they were very afraid of needles, they really didn't want to take it. And so, um, when we first tried talking about their options for this is we talked about how getting a flu shot can make you safer. It can protect you from the flu, or if you get the flu, your symptoms will be better. We talked about how the TB test lets you know if you've been exposed so that you can protect people around you. But what we learned in framing it that way was that's not where her motivation lies. Their motivation lied in wanting to be able to care for these animals that they love. They wanted to be able to pet the lizard. They wanted to be able to hold the cat. And so then we framed it as, well, I know these needles are very scary and this process seems very intimidating, but if you want to be able to do the things you like, then we need to do this and leaving that option up to them, but framing it in a way that they understand and in their motivations. I think this also falls into other decisions as well, especially with healthcare, healthy lifestyle decisions. Conversations I've had with her before is talking about we need to eat a balanced diet so that we can get all the nutrients that we need. And to her, that kind of goes over her head about understanding what type of nutrients we need. Um, what type of nutrients we need, but we can frame it as we need to eat all these types of foods. We need to eat different types of foods so we have energy to do the things we want. And what are the things that we want to do? We want to be able to go to the park and run around. And in order to do that, we have to be able to eat healthy and to eat enough in order to do that. And so we really wanted to focus on their needs and their strengths and what they want to do. And it also in centering your child, it's about gradually increasing their responsibility. Um, Again, like we keep saying, no one becomes a great decision maker overnight. I bet there's decisions that I regret making in life, and I bet there's decisions that you all have made that you might regret in life too. But we can only learn from these mistakes, and then we only learn by gradually increasing their responsibility. So as a child, it begins with letting them make small decisions and slowly increasing them as they gain knowledge and as they learn to make better decisions. And I see Jennifer added into the chat about how does this fit or complement person-centered plan? And so this really fits in with the person-centered plan as well. The person-centered plan is the ultimate way of how your child can communicate their preferences, right? Sitting down in a person-centered plan, you talk about what their goals are, what their motivations are, what they want to do. And that then feeds into what types of regional center services that they may want and other supports they want, maybe what social rec and how it fits into what they want to do as a person. And so maybe for their person-centered plan, one of their goals is talking about wanting to get involved with again getting involved with animals, and that's really what their passion lies in. So then when making different decisions, you can lean back to your person-centered plan to see what they're passionate about, it it really helps frame them in a decision in their decision making. And so next we'll talk about building support networks. This is oftentimes something that parents really want to talk about because again, we don't want to limit their support network to just their parents. Just as in conservatorships, the support network is really just one person who is making the decisions for you. And so first, we talk about who our natural circle of support are, and that includes people that they may see every day, maybe or have really close connection with. People like you as parents, other family members, maybe it's their sibling, and then as well as their friends. This includes kind of the natural circle of support and people you think of immediately to ask for support and to help them make decisions. But that doesn't just have to be parents, family, or friends. And it's important to build up this type of building up these support networks because again, when we're talking to parents, a lot of their biggest fears is what is going to happen when I'm not here anymore? Who is going to help support my person when I'm not here? And so it's important to build this out, build it out to families, to friends. And maybe it's for healthcare decisions, maybe you have a family friend who is a doctor or who's a nurse, and they would be a great person for um, your child to use as a supporter for healthcare decisions. And it's important to think about where the strengths are of these people and how they can support your child and to really get them introduced to your child because the best supporters is someone that they can trust, right? Someone that understands their mannerisms, understands how they communicate, and that only begins with having a rapport with these supporters. And again, to build upon that, other trusted individuals can consist of staff. Maybe that's their communication partner who helps them type or helps them use their AAC device. It can also be caregivers who see them every day and see how they communicate their decisions, what to do when they're upset, understand when they're upset about a decision or they're not feeling heard. And it also includes other professionals as well, whether that's, you want they want their doctor to be a part of their decision making team. Maybe it's a financial professional, maybe it's a therapist or a speech therapist. So there are other trusted professionals that really understand who your child is and understand how they communicate, can also be a part of these networks. And the big thing is, where do we look beyond to that? It can be talking to your neighbors. Maybe you want to share with your neighbors that, hey, my son or my daughter lives with me, in an emergency situation, and they use a wheelchair. In an emergency situation, I would really appreciate your help if you can help support in these types of emergency situations to know that my child is safe, right? We can look to those neighbors. We can look to past professionals. Maybe there was a previous doctor that they really connected with. Maybe there was a previous teacher that your child really connected with. And it also begins with asking for support. Maybe it's reaching out to different advocacy groups and seeing, having them connect with other self advocates, encouraging social relationships and making friends so that they can build that network of support as well. And then I see Jennifer asked, no one can be paid, right? So a supporter can be someone who is paid staff. They just can't have conflicting interests in things. So let's say your child needs a supporter for their financial decisions. It wouldn't be like that person wouldn't be right to be the one indicating making their financial decisions if that financial decisions includes what they're going to be paid. So there just can't be a conflict of interest there, but paid individuals can be their supporters.
So just to be clear, for example, if we wanted to invite his neuropsychologist to be a supporter and she said, great, my fee is $250 an hour, that would be a non-starter.
So they're not supposed to be, again, these people shouldn't be like paid to be in the capacity of a supporter. These people should just be um being a person that just like kind of naturally supports your child. Again, if that maybe it's you pay them a fee to be seen as a neuropsychologist, that's a different story than being paid as their supporter, because then they would have conflicting interest there.
Vivian, I
Got it.
have a
Thanks.
question about formal versus informal. So a lot of the things that we talk about where we have these restrictions on who can be a supporter are if you're like filling out, notarizing, submitting an agreement. But if you're informally practicing SDM and one step that you wanted is like, okay, this is something I'd like to consult my therapist about, and then you pay for a session of therapy before making a decision, that would still be appropriate, right?
Yeah, and that would be different than having someone pay to make the decisions for you, or that might have a conflict of interest. Does that kind of answer your question, Jennifer?
Yeah, that was great. And unfortunately, my son works with a lot of clinicians and professionals who aren't going to contribute without being paid. So it kind of limits the availability of supporters.
And then that is a big thing that parents worry about. And a big thing is talking to them about, maybe it's not every decision that they need to be a part of. Maybe it's the decision where they have the most area of expertise, and asking if they would be willing to participate in it, because maybe it's about their healthcare and this decision would impact their healthcare, and framing it in that way may be able to help get their buy-in as well.
Thank you. That's good perspective.
And then next, we'll talk about different challenges and disagreements and we may face while using supported decision making. So, a big thing parents often talk about in supported decision making is what happens when I don't agree with what my child wants to decide. What happens then? And so, again, it's all about centering them for all the decisions and making sure that they understand the decisions fully without us trying to persuade them one way or another. It's making sure that they know what the consequences may be. And if they choose that wrong decision, helping them learn from that mistake, but not pushing their decision to maybe what we want. Again, there's some caveats to this when we talk about things that will cause them harm, right? But again, it goes back to this idea of dignity of risk. They have the ability to make some decisions with an amount of risk so that they can be able to learn from them and have that type of autonomy. And so, for in handling disagreements, it's one thing when you disagree with your child, it's sharing with them what your perspective is, right? As a parent, I'm afraid that you might do this because I'm afraid that you won't be safe because of it. It talks about talking about compromise, right? So one thing that I've had when I was working as a caregiver was they wanted to be able to go to the library more freely. They were worried they didn't want to have to wait for mom or for me as caregiver or for someone else to be able to drive them, and they wanted to be able to use other modes of transportation to be able to get to the library. And of course, to me as a caregiver, and then to the parents was the big fear of is this safe for them? Um, can they do this safely? Will something happen to them? And so then we became with a compromise. Maybe it's let's start with something small, right? There's a library a couple blocks from where they live. And so maybe it's starting small and letting them go for a walk a little bit. Talking about compromise. Maybe it's okay, you want to go by yourself, but maybe I will call the Uber ride so then I have all the details and I understand where you are at, right? Or maybe it's compromising on um, maybe or how about I drive you there and then but your time at the library is to yourself, right? I'll sit and wait in the car and you can have that freedom when you go to the library. It's all about coming up with compromises so they still feel autonomy and about their decisions, but you as a parent and as their supporter can feel that they're still being protected. Now I wanted to talk about different arguments people have against supported decision making and how we can fight back against them. And wanting to just bring up these are a lot of things that I've heard parents share about their fear about using supported decision making over conservatorship. And I just wanted to provide space for us to kind of talk about it. And so, one big thing that we hear parents a lot talk about is, well, my child lacks decision making capacity. They don't know how to make these decisions. And to that, I say we need to practice making those decisions, right? And maybe your child is older now, and it now we have to begin from square one, and we need to start from scratch, and we need to start with these small decisions, making what they need to eat for today, what they're going to do, and then slowly we build up different decisions. You can't just wake up and know how to make these decisions, so it's all about practicing while they're young and practicing when you can. So maybe they're no longer young right now. You can still practice these decisions with them. And every day as you practice these decisions, their decision making capacity grows, right? And so when we look at that with conservatorship, which is really hard to get out of, is you're automatically taking away all the decision making capability when they have the potential to grow into it, right? Maybe right now supported decision making looks a little more like substitute decision making for areas with more complex decisions, right? Maybe for healthcare right now, they want you to make all the decisions for them. Maybe that's the case for finances too. But as they build capacity and have gradually increasing responsibility in their decisions, maybe now it's I want mom to help support me at a healthcare, at a doctor's visit, but I don't need you to make the decisions for me now, right? And with supported decision making, you can easily retract that original thing and change how much support you need. Whereas in conservatorship, you aren't able to go back on that without having to go to the courts and reinstating different rights, and it's a much more arduous process. Other thing parents talk about is there's unclear responsibilities. Um, for conservatorship, if you're the conservator, you make all the decisions and it's very clear cut. But what I would argue for this is supported decision making is only as effective as how you communicate with them how and when and who they want the support from. And so we shared last week, but we can share it again. Different ways where you can sit down and talk about when and where and how they want support in different types of decisions they want in their life, right? Maybe it's something as small as deciding on what to wear to something as big as where they live and who they live with, right? And it's all about giving space to communicate with them so that you don't overstep their boundaries as well. Other things people talk about is conflicting priorities between supporters. Maybe mom thinks one thing, but staff thinks one thing, and grandpa thinks one thing. And that can be difficult to reconcile, right? But again, we want to center our loved one with a disability around this. And we actually want them to hear diverse perspectives, right? And that's the beauty of supported decision making over conservatorship, where they aren't able to hear all these perspectives. Here, they're able to hear all these different perspectives in order to be able to make a more informed decision. And so now we'll end with your role again. And so the power of your story, sharing your perspective as a parent, your lived experience as a parent, sharing stories about using supported decision making effectively with your child, sharing what your motivations are in using supported decision making. Maybe it's ensuring that they have autonomy, making sure they have more independence, making sure they have tools and support they need to live life the way they want to, right? Living a more self-determined life. Maybe it's making sure that they have the supports they need after you pass, right? I think that's again a big thing that parents worry about. And with supported decision making, they're a part of that process. And I want to add to that is in the new IPP template. That they began implementing this year, support decision making supports and that type of succession plan is actually incorporated in the IPP process, and talking about who their supporters are and what steps that you can do to continue to build out that support. And so just wanted to end off with this quote with everyone, regardless of their disability or what supports they may need, has the right to make choices. Every day, all of us make choices and all of us use different types of supports, right? I still to this day will reach out to my aunt who's a medical professional when I have to make a healthcare decision. Um, we all use supports every day, and we shouldn't deny a child with a disability from that as well. And so that concludes our session 2 for our supported decision making session. Um, and so I just wanted to open it up to questions that you all may have. I know I answered some that were coming in through the chat, but before we go into our breakout groups, I just wanted to open it up to see if anyone had any questions. And feel free to type in the chat or go ahead and unmute and share as well. It can also be maybe challenges that you might face as you're using supported decision making, or challenges you anticipate down the road as well.
Since no one else has anything, I'll speak up. So the nature of my son's disability is that he has limited cognitive processing capacity and speed. So he needs to limit and prioritize where he wants to put his energy. And we are looking at SDM in part as his authority to delegate. I don't want to be involved in X, Y, and Z processes. I'm authorizing these people to be involved on my behalf. And we're having difficulty getting people to acknowledge and respect that. Um, and I'm just wondering, like, do you have any strategies for how we approach that? Because it's very much his choice of, I want to focus my time on studies, right? I don't want to be involved with this administrative process and bureaucracy. Yet the agencies then push back and insist that he be a full participant.
Yeah, I think one of the big things, I believe Jennifer, you shared the last session talking about Department of Rehab, correct?
Yeah, we're still struggling with that.
I wanted to share, we talked to Judy about it as well, and she has a contact there, and Department of Rehab should not be doing that. And so she did share, if you were able to get something in writing from them that they were rejecting your supported decision-making agreement and things like that, we would want to help you escalate that as well, just because, especially with Department of Rehab being involved with all these other organizations that are tangentially related, like State Council of Developmental Disabilities. We want to help you be able to escalate that. But in terms of, I think it depends on what types of decisions, right? For healthcare, there may still be the need for to fill out some forms like the HIPAA authorization to be there. Other not problems, but other setbacks that you may face is that they might need to speak with your child first before they can talk to you. And I know that tends to be the situation for myself as well. I'm a supporter for my grandma who has limited English skills and is getting older and wanting to delegate that task out for healthcare decisions to someone else. But oftentimes when we go to a visit or meet on the phone and have to that process um, go through that process, they need to address her first and to have her give consent there. Um, Supported decision making agreements should be according to the law. Again, because the law is so new, a lot of people aren't aware of it yet. So one thing I would encourage is, if you are facing that setback, is sharing that law with them. I'm going to put a link in the chat to that law as well. In order to get people to understand that. In this form that I'm putting in the chat now, it clearly talks about exploring decision-making supports. And one of the options on there is them delegating that task out to someone else as well. And so that can also be something that can be filled out and shared as well. And I'm sorry that you're facing all these different setbacks. I think we're in this place where supported decision making is so new in California in the legal sense, right? We've all been practicing supported decision making since forever, but it in a legal capacity has been so new that there has been very limited education for professionals on it. And so some of them may not even be aware that this is something that parents can use with their child as well. Hopefully that helped a little bit, Jennifer. I know it's it's a hard thing to say that you can do this, and there's like one thing that you can do and they'll automatically accept it, just because we're in this phase of it being so new.
That's helpful. Thank you. I'm texting Michaela in the background, so
No problem.
multitasking.
No problem. Just wanted to open it up for any other questions before we go to breakout rooms to talk more about this. If not, whenever Michaela is ready.
Yep, so it's gonna be split. Gilda's gonna moderate one and Vivian will moderate the other. So half of you will get a notification on your screen that says to join a room. If you don't get a notification, don't worry, you're just staying here with Vivian. Wait, Vivian, there's still a few trickling out to Gilda's room.
Sounds good.
So Carmen, Lorena, and Mari, if you see on your screen, there should be a notice to join Gilda's breakout room.
All right. How's everyone doing tonight? Good. I see nods from Jakora. um, all right. I think some people, if we want, we can introduce ourselves again, but I know it seems like a lot of people are very well acquainted with each other from different programs they've been at here at DBU, but we can go ahead and do quick introductions. Um, again, my name is Vivian. I'm the project manager here at DBU for our supported decision-making training and information center. But I'm also a family member of multiple people with disabilities, and have worked in the past as a caregiver for adults with disabilities. And so that's why I'm here. If others want to unmute and introduce themselves as well.
I'm Jakora Robinson. I'm a parent and family member of individuals with disabilities served by the Regional Center. Um, I'm also an ambassador for DBU, servicing North Los Angeles Regional Center.
Perfect. Nice to meet you, Jakora.
And Tao, if you can hear me, I sent you a message to join. Yep, there we go. We've got Tao. Okay.
All right. Does anyone else want to unmute and just introduce themselves really quick before we start our discussion today? It's okay if not as well. You can just introduce yourself as we share as well. So one of the big things that we want to talk about, especially as your role as a potential co-presenter with DBU and sharing about supported decision making, is wanting to discuss a time where you were able to successfully use supported decision making to help your child make a decision. And it can be a small decision, it can be a large decision, but maybe we can go around and share some examples of it working for us.
I share. So my daughter. She just turned 18 on February 25th, and she's very she's very independent in a way, but I know, like, with her living on her own, um, there's decisions that she just wouldn't understand and how to make them and all that stuff. But I think it's good just to have that to help her be able to be independent and still make her decisions. However, when she needs that support, that is in place. with this program. So I'll be able to assist her and any other support person that's a part of her circle of support.
Thank you for sharing, Shakura. I think, again, that's important, right? Letting them have their space to be able to make decisions that they feel comfortable making, but letting them know that they do have a circle of support that they can reach out to when they need. Does anyone else want to share? I see Jennifer just unmuted.
Yeah, so my son is very detail oriented and sometimes has difficulty boiling that up to the big picture. So one thing that works really well for him is scoring systems, like rank how happy you are with this on a scale from 1 to 10 and tracking that over time. And also forced rankings where I'll like write down his options on stickies and he can just rearrange them on the table of like what's most important, second most important, third most important. And we've used that a couple of times to kind of be like, okay, what are you looking for in a program? We have option A, we have option B. And then he does his force rankings, and then we talk through what does that mean? What does that mean? The logical choices based on what you've said is most important to you. So that's one way that we do it. A lot of sticky notes.
I think that's a great way. I think it's about learning what strategy works best for your child. And I love the sticky notes, explaining that out that way. And I think it shows them that the choices that they have to make, and it isn't simply always a yes or a no answer for a choice, right? It's about thinking about each decision and thinking about each option and the pros and cons of each of them. And I think that's a great way to facilitate that. Would anyone else like to share? Lorena, Gail. Oh, I see Gail unmuted.
Hi, my example is a little bit more simple, but my son decided that he wanted to go into coding, and then we explored what kind of options he had to do that. And he decided that he wanted to go to college. And he had to do some um, work before he got into college. And so, just to make a long story short, he decided what he wanted to do. And, you know, I felt like my part was to um, teach him and then help advocate for the support staff to, to go with him because he wanted to learn how to be more independent in the community and how to go towards in being, just independent as an adult. So, long story short, he's in college now, and he's got an A last semester, and he's working on this semester. So he feels a lot of joy and a lot of accomplishment because he made some decisions, because he decided his ultimate goal is he wants to, be married and have a family. And these are the steps that he's gonna take to get there. So, yeah. So he feels good about himself. And I'm proud of him. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, Gail. And that's not a small decision at all. I think that's some very big things, thinking about the future, thinking about that type of planning, and um, helping them be proactive in making the decisions to get to where they need to go and where they want to go. And I think that feeling of pride and that feeling of happiness of them being able to make those decisions and seeing them feel happy about the decisions um, is a great motivator as well, right? Especially with supported decision making. Rather than someone just making the decisions for you, you're a part of it and you're a part of this life and you are an active participant in it and you get to set your goals and there are people along the way to help you reach that.
Yeah, and it all some of it kind of started from having a good person-centered plan. and him, you know, of course, both, I have two kids, but both of them being very integral parts and having a great person at the helm of making this, the person-centered plan, and he's just looking at the plan and implementing it. So, yeah.
I think that's great. And like I was sharing earlier, creating a person-centered plan is the ultimate way, right? And the most almost like formulaic way we can get our child to sit down and talk about what their preferences are, what their wants are, what their needs are, what their aspirations are, and then building out from there, how do we get there? Does anyone else want to share? Lorena, Victoria, Mari? If not, we can go on to our next talking point for tonight. It's discussing a time maybe where you might have disagreed with your child's choice, and how did you communicate with your child in a way to voice your concerns while still letting them be in the driver's seat and without pushing them, forcing your decision or your choice upon them. And so one of the examples is for me, it was when I was a caregiver for someone. It was really difficult to encourage them to make healthy lifestyle choices, especially when it came to eating. If they wanted, if they could, they would eat French fries and chicken nuggets from McDonald's every single day. That was their love. Um, but we wanted to encourage them to try more foods and increase the diversity of the types of foods they ate, right? And so one of the things was they really wanted to learn how to cook. And so we really talked about that. Well, if you want to cook, well, instead of going to McDonald's to get chicken nuggets and French fries, maybe we try making that together. And it started out really simple with us buying frozen chicken nuggets and fries and her learning how to use the air fryer, learning how to put it in the oven. But that process got her excited about cooking, the concept of cooking. So then it was, what's the next step? Well, now you learn how to make this. Don't you want to learn how to make other things too? And so the disagreement for us was between encouraging her to get diverse foods. And so in this, without having to force her, it was just framing it in a different way that is motivating to her, right? Oh, well, now you like cooking and you did such a great job cooking these chicken nuggets and French fries. Is there other things that you think you might want to cook? And then going from there and building up these skills. And then it became her thing of wanting to learn how to make pasta salad. But at first it was really limited, right? It was just the pasta and the mayonnaise and just carrots because she didn't like any other vegetable. And then, well, it was, well, now let's add like just one other vegetable. And if we don't like that one, we can try a different one next time. And so encouraging them to explore those different options and to just, again, frame it in a way that is motivating to them. So that's one I have to share. If someone else wants to share about maybe some challenges or disagreements you have, or how you were able to kind of motivate them to make good choices um, in that sense.
I think one of mine is my children's desire to go into the community independently. And you know, that's a challenge. Um, and so us just coming together and saying, okay, well, if you want to do this, you want to go into the community independently, that's fine, but let's take steps. Let's scaffold that skill that you want to be able to implement in the community. let's not just, go out in the community by yourself, but let's just get support staff. Let's just do little short trips. Let's just, that kind of thing. Let's go to safe places and that kind of thing. And so that's kind of what we're doing, is building like that, and then compromising.
I think those are great points, Gail. It's all about compromise and again, building up these steps. Especially when they wanted to go independently. It's not an automatically no, it's how do we get there, right? Maybe that's the end goal for us and what are the steps we need to take. I know for me, it was a similar example and it was, we began with let's do grocery shopping by yourself now. So the first trip we went together. We decided on a recipe to make and we made our list and we went in together and looked at different ingredients and what to buy. And then the next one, it was, okay, if you feel ready, you can go in by yourself now, but I'm going to sit here in the car on my phone. So if you have a question about a choice, you can always text me. Maybe it's you don't know which pasta to get, and then you can text me and I can help support you in those decisions, right? And it's just building up until eventually they're able to accomplish that goal of going out and doing things independently. Anyone else want to share some other stories? Mari, Lorena, Jakora, Jennifer.
Is it okay?
One thing I've noticed is that my son reacts much differently to using the word support than using the word help. And I think the language makes a big difference. Support makes him feel empowered and in the driver's seat, right? And help is like he's weak and needs assistance. So I've really tried to change my language a lot and focus on how can I support you and what do you want to do? Anyway, so I think the language is important. I'm now changing my language with my cognitively impaired aunt, and I'm finding a similar response that support makes her feel much more empowered than the word help.
I see Jakora nodding to that too. I think language is really important and we talk about supported decision making, not in this group, but supported decision making in general, with aging patients as well, right? Or the elderly. And I think sometimes that the framework of help versus support is very different for that population as well, wanting them to feel empowered rather than making them feel weak. I know other ways that we can encourage them that getting support is okay is wanting to model that behavior as well. Maybe it's you suggesting out things like, hey, maybe I need support with something today, and encouraging your child to be a part of that process, whether it's a small decision, right? Just including them in that process as well. And I saw Gail unmuted before.
I was just wanting to say, this is not anything I do, but it's something I want to incorporate. One of my girlfriends, to support her son and to promote independence and autonomy in the community, she takes walks with him, but she walks like a half a block behind him. And they've been doing this for a long time. And so she didn't start a half block behind him, but she kind of gradually is increasing decreasing the proximity, so that she's, further and further behind him. And I thought that was pretty good. I might try to start that with my kids. Yeah.
I think that's a great strategy. It's building up that confidence too. I think sometimes it's very daunting. Like let's say, okay, you want to be able to go on walks by yourself and just to tell them, okay, now go, right? And if that first time doesn't work out, I know with experience in my family members, if that first time doesn't work out, it's a really not a great experience, right? You feel really defeated, and it's very challenging to encourage them to try that again. So it's really great to start out with that small thing. Hey, we did this. Maybe tomorrow we try it a little further apart. Um, and it's those baby steps and encouraging successes rather than setting a goal that would lead to possibly something that is a more negative outcome.
I think with my daughter, she's aware of like her age, and she's very thoughtful on really feeling like um she's her age, not like someone that will talk down to her or make her feel like she doesn't know or is not mature. She likes to know that, I'm 18. Like that's a big deal. When she turned 13, that was a big deal to her, all the way to now she's an adult. And so when you're talking to her, the support person has to know that, you want to talk to her not like a baby, but like a, mature adult, but still um, giving her um, a good breakdown of what things mean and explaining them to her in a way. Also, with her support team, my daughter, she loves people around her age. So, like young adults or something like that. Someone that can support her, but also make her feel like she has a friend or a companion. So that's very important.
Yeah. I think these are great points, Chikora, and it's learning about how they want that support, right? It's presuming that competence with them and informing maybe they're getting new staff, new supporters that this is how my daughter likes to communicate. My daughter doesn't like being talked down to. Treat her like the adult that she is, talk to her in that way. And if she has questions, you can explain it to her, right? And knowing where she stands on that is really important in facilitating that trust as well, right? And I think that's also a good point about knowing the types of people she wants as supporters as well. Um, uh, Knowing that she likes people who are around her age, who are her peers, right? Rather than someone who might be older. Um, Okay, I know we're closing up in about 4 minutes, so we can talk about advocating for supported decision making with others. So, what type of messaging would you use to help convince other parents that they should also try using supported decision making over immediately jumping to a conservatorship for um, other parents? Or um, was what type of messaging was impactful for you in making that decision to implement supported decision making in your child's life?
For me, it was just knowledge is power. And at first, I didn't know what supportive decision making was. And just another parent, because a lot of times people trust other parents more than they do like people in the system. So because sometimes they have whatever for whatever reason, but just a good parent sometimes coming from a good place that and just giving you knowledge. And so when I received the knowledge, and um, that was like one of the biggest pieces of information that I got, because before some of the other parents that I knew were all leaning towards conservatorship, right? But then when I got that information that there was a great alternative to it, that was several years ago, about 5 years ago. Then I stopped looking for an attorney to do that and just leaned into what I was learning. So, knowledge is very powerful, and just empowering a parent and coming from a parent's point of view where, people, you don't have a vested skin in the game, but you just want to help, somebody else's child. You want it just like yours was helped. So, I don't know if that makes sense, but knowledge is power.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Gail. I think that makes perfect sense. I think sometimes we don't know about the other option, but once we know, it's sharing that wealth of knowledge, right? Now that you know, Gail, how many parents can you reach with that information? And those parents that learned from you, Gail, how many more parents can they reach? And how we can continue to spread that as well. Does anyone else like to share? I know we're closing out in about a minute. And just share quickly as people start trickling back in, was in our family, it was having the discussion of a succession plan early on and being proactive about it and being able to support our loved ones and ensure that they are surrounded by people that they trust, rather than having the potential where it's just one person and then something happens to that one person, where will it go now? And not knowing whether or not the court will pick who we want to be the next in line, right? And it's ensuring that they are going to have a life where they're fully surrounded by people that they trust and support and know them best.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back.
We were in mid-sentence and I was
Oh no.
no, it's okay. Valerio was bringing up a really good point, and I wanted to get to the last question and I didn't because we had a really good conversation, but I wanted them to talk about their messaging of SDM to other parents or other families, and so I would love to hear from my group what that messaging would be. So
Yeah. Let's begin the conversation there, with either of the groups, maybe talking about what type of messaging you would want to hear, or what messaging was convincing to you to use supported decision making.
Should I continue?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so what I was saying is that my son also goes onto a very late sleeping schedule if nobody will advise him of such going to sleep in time. And I was telling the group that what has worked for us at times, not all the time, but at times, is basically to challenge him to basically agree to, or that it will be a bad idea to going to bed at a very late time, because then the next morning he's going to have a really hard time to get up and get ready to go to class. He has a couple of classes in college and junior college, and he sometimes goes, yeah, you know what, you're right, maybe I should leave this or what I'm doing and get ready to go to bed in like 45 minutes, an hour, you name it. And sometimes he's so into whatever he's doing, watching a movie, just playing video games or whatever, that he just doesn't want to stop what he's doing. But it's work in progress. I think that with time we will achieve the goal, and that's basically what we have done, my wife and I. And although he doesn't listen to my wife that much, but oh well, normal
Which
young adults.
Which
Yeah.
Valeria, which it brings up, that's a really good challenge and a disagreement that you would have with your child, but also addressing like dignity of risk, right? Like that's what Vivian was talking about is you got to allow for some risk for them to fail sometimes, but I would love to hear how others approach the conversation of how do you talk about spreading the word in the message of STM with other parents or families? Because I would love to hear from everyone how do they do that? How yeah, I'll pass it over
Yeah,
to you, Vivian.
sure. Let's listen to someone else. Thank you.
I don't know what is ACM. I'm sorry, I missed it.
SDM is supported decision making, so just supported decision making in general. What
Okay,
type of
sorry,
message?
sorry, I heard A as an apple.
No, you're all good.
Okay, ACM. Okay.
I know Gail in our group earlier shared a great insight to that. If you want to come off mute and share again, Gail, to the group, not to put you on the spot.
I'm sorry, my kids were distracting me. What was the question again?
No, you're all good. We were just having the discussion again about what type of messaging you find effective in sharing about SDM. And I was just saying you had a great point in our group if you wanted to share with the larger group here.
Well, just knowledge is power. And I would like to, evoke curiosity about it, just present the knowledge and then evoke curiosity about it because a lot of times parents aren't empowered because they don't know about certain things like I didn't know. But once I found out about it because I thought the only alternative to protect your child is conservatorship, right? But once because all of the parents that I knew at that time was doing that, and that was about 5 or 6 years ago. So once I talked to another parent that had another point of view, then it evoked curiosity. And instead of making an appointment with an attorney, what I started doing was researching supported decision making. And after I did that, it just seemed more logical. And then I actually did something too. I went on a website and started looking up cases of people who were trying to get out of conservatorships and what a hard time they were doing. I mean, getting out of conservatorships and even out of certain decisions that courts had made for them, and how some of the research that I've seen is that, you only get a chance once a year to be heard, and you're stuck in that situation for an entire year that might be, in a situation that might be a totally bad situation for you. So, and how some people have been in that loop from year to year. And then I thought, I don't want my kids to be trapped in that. So it evoked curiosity, information. I love what you guys are doing here because information sometimes evokes curiosity, and then people start looking at alternatives and is there a better way?
Thank you
Thank,
for sharing.
thank you. Thank you for doing this. This is great.
I'd just like to share that my daughter's 21 and she was diagnosed before 3 with autism. She's able to speak and make decisions. And so she had services until the age of 7. And then I went back to the IEP when she was around 16 years old. And so now that she's 21, we moved from San Jose to Santa Ana. And here I met friends, on those years that Semira was without an IEP. I didn't bother to go to any groups or to read more about autism. Like she was doing well in school, and That's all I care. But now that she kind of went back to not wanting to go out and meet friends, not wanting to do well in school, not wanting to get out of the house, like kind of like just staying inside the house. So now I'm more involved in groups like this one, or like she's getting services from regional center. So I met friends maybe like 3-4 years ago that will say you should get conservatorship for Semira so that you can make decisions for Semira. So it was all kind of like brand new to me. But I just read a little where if I had conservatorship, kind of like Semira wouldn't have any rights, like I would have make all decisions for Semira. And I kind of like didn't like it because Semira is very capable of deciding, like a lot of things in her life. It's just for social, I guess, skills for social relationships. So I'm very glad that I didn't listen to my friend because I did go to see the attorney, and of course they were very willing to do the paperwork so that Samira will get her conservatorship. But I felt kind of like there has to be another way. There has to be a way for Samira to be able to, I guess, take control of her life and be able to make decisions without going through conservatorship.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think that's a really big point too, right? Sharing about the law, how conservatorship is a loss of rights and how it's a difficult process to get it back, and wanting to encourage that autonomy and independence.
That friend that recommended me to get the conservatorship, sometimes I will say things like, oh, Samira was in a day program, but now she doesn't want to go anymore. And then she'll say, if you had conservatorship, that wouldn't be an issue. You would just grab her arm and then take her to the day program. But I say she doesn't want to go because she says she's repeating the year. She's repeating the same activities as last year. So therefore, I understand. I wouldn't want to be repeating the same I guess plan schedule that they had. Like she wants to make better use of her time, like learn new things instead of repeating the same knowledge. So I'm glad I don't have conservatorship for her.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that's important. And it builds upon that point where when they get to make decisions about their life, they're going to be more excited, and they're going to be able to do activities that make them excited, that make them happy as well. I know it's 6:30, but before we end, but we'll still stay on if people still want to have conversations about this. But I did want to launch our post-training survey. Our last session we did our pre-training survey, and so we just wanted to launch our post-training survey. Again, this is because we have a grant with State Council of Developmental Disabilities to provide these trainings on supported decision makings and to provide more in the future. And so we would just love your feedback on what we can do better, what you learned, and everything like that. So I just launched it. So if you could please fill it out, we would really appreciate it.
I'm gonna leave, Vivian. It was nice seeing everyone. Thank you for hosting these, and I look forward to seeing everyone in different meetings.
Of course. Thank you so much,
Bye,
Gilda, for
Vivian.
moderating.
Bye, Jacora. Bye, Araceli. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Have a good night.
Bye, Hilda.
Bye.
Sorry, I was answering the quiz. So
No, you're all good.
thank you. Is this SDM, is it gonna be next Thursday again?
No, so this one is our last training for this series, but we will be having more trainings in the future. So stay tuned on more trainings in the future. But